If you've ever watched a spy movie before, the plotline I'm about to describe always happens. The main character hasn't been in active duty as a super secret agent for some time now, or maybe they've just retired altogether. Yet the scene before set the conflict. The biggest, worst bad guy to ever grace the silver screen has the most diabolical plot the world has ever seen before. It's such a dangerous mission that the world's only hope is the main character, who receives a dossier that others received on a need-to-know basis. Then, when their closest companion from the agency that they used to work with pleads them to come back, the main character replies with something like, "I'm not that person anymore." If you're a scriptwriter, please don't take that masterpiece of a story that I just described. But what if I told you that a portion of my plot describes a requirement within the healthcare industry? I'm talking about the portion of that spy movie scene where the main character receives confidential information. It's on a need-to-know basis. Believe it or not, a need-to-know basis is sort of a requirement for healthcare organizations according to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Hi everyone, I'm Matt from eTactics, and today I'm going to explain the HIPAA need-to-know basis for healthcare organizations. Before we get started though, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button below. While you're down there, hit that alert bell icon next to it as well, so when we post new helpful content, you get notified. I said sort of earlier because that verbiage isn't explicitly included within the law itself. Yet it's a best practice, and that phrasing makes what's written out within the law much more understandable, believe it or not. The minimum necessary standard is a situational section within the HIPAA privacy rule that covers how covered entities should use or disclose protected health information, or PHI. In essence, it states that healthcare professionals shouldn't use or disclose PHI when it isn't necessary for a specific purpose or function. In a case where professionals decide that they need to disclose or use PHI for a purpose, the rule requires that they only share information that's relevant and necessary. Of course, the minimum necessary standard doesn't apply when holding a discussion with the patient. There are 5 additional non-applicable scenarios. Requests made by another provider for treatment purposes when the applicable patient gives permission, required for compliance with HIPAA administrative simplification rules, if the Department of Health and Human Services or HHS requires disclosures for enforcement purposes, or if requirements to share come from another law. Yet this portion of the law is viewed as flexible rather than enigmatic. In other words, it's built to cater to scenarios covered entities may find themselves in. So where does need to know actually come in? Nowhere within HIPAA does it explicitly say that PHI requires a need to know basis. Instead, it's a term that encompasses the minimum necessary standard pretty well. Instead of having to worry about all of the different specifications, requirements, and legal vernacular stated within the law and on the HHS's website, that term pretty much summarizes everything. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a need-to-know basis means you only tell people the facts they need to know at the time they need to know them, and nothing more. In other words, that definition aligns perfectly with what the minimum necessary standard requires healthcare organizations to implement. Using the phrase need-to-know basis makes the minimum necessary standard more comprehensible. Thus, incorporating that phrasing into your policies and/or annual HIPAA training sessions makes it easy for your employees to understand the law. Incorporating a need-to-know basis at your organization also has an effect with vendors you work with outside of your organization. If you're a healthcare professional, you know that there are certain vendors you have to use in order to make your job easier. HIPAA allows practices and facilities to work with vendors, otherwise the burnout situation would be even worse. Naturally, some vendors that medical organizations work with need to have access to or store PHI in order for their services to work. That's allowed as long as there's a business associate agreement signed between the two organizations. At that point though, both parties are responsible for securing the data that they handle. Business associates caused nearly 41% of all healthcare breaches in 2020. In other words, establishing a need-to-know basis within your organization isn't enough. You also have to ensure that your vendors have safeguards in place that protect your clients' data. Implementing a need-to-know basis at your healthcare organization isn't a one-and-done thing. You have to establish it as a mentality. As the owner or administrator of a healthcare organization, you want to trust your workforce that they'll do the right thing every single day. Yet, out of 1,000 business owners, almost 50% of them said that human error was the culprit for a breach that they've experienced in the past. There's a ton of different things organizations can implement to lessen the risk of human error, yet a lot of your woes would disappear if you place an emphasis on the mentality of a need-to-know basis. People whose responsibilities aren't directly related to protected health information shouldn't have access to it, period. You now know that secret agents and healthcare professionals aren't that different from one another. Both of them operate on a need-to-know basis. If they didn't, they're risking some of the most private information on the planet. The spy risks national security secrets, while the doctor risks their patient information. If either type of that data leaks, it leads to massive consequences. If you'd like to learn more about establishing a HIPAA need-to-know basis at your organization, reach out to eTactics. And you already made this far into the video, so you might as well like it, share it, and comment below. Well, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.